So, hello everyone and welcome to another exciting and insightful webinar. My name is Gustavo Queiroz, or you can simply call me Gus, and I'm the industry manager responsible for food and beverage here in Australia. And based on the great feedback we got from our previous temperature webinar, we decided to invite our colleagues from Germany again, but this time to talk about the calibration of temperature sensors, a new approach. And I really like the suspense on this title. So I would like to introduce you to Dietmar and Benjamin, who is our senior product and application expert, and also to Benjamin Lucas, who is our training manager. Both of them focus on our temperature and system products offering. So I guess that's it from an introduction point of view, and I can hand it over to Ben and Dietmar. So guys, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Good morning from Germany. For us, it's good morning. It's quite early in the morning. Good afternoon to Australia. From my side, I'm Dietmar, and there is Ben. Again, we are in one room, but there's a big distance between us, so we are safe. We all hope you're safe too. All right. Again, please use the Mentimeter application for making this presentation interactive. You can scan the QR code. For example, if you just do a photo with an iPhone, you will automatically go to this website. Otherwise, you can enter www.menti.com to your browser. There's no software download, there is no tracking, nothing. And enter the code 21841 so you can participate on this presentation. So we hope you help us to make it interactive. Okay, today we will talk about the calibration of temperature sensors, and we will offer an interesting and fast story about it. So again, scan the QR code, please. No, there's no app, no installation. Really fast, and it helps us to make it very interactive. Ben?
Just briefly before we go on, one more thing, if you're not familiar, to go to webinar already. So this time you're able to submit your questions in both ways. So you could either use the chat box and go to webinar. I will answer most of your questions hopefully correctly in the background, or you could use Mentimeter, which you see back there. And once more, Dietmar already said it, you don't need to download anything. There is no tracking. You can use your cell phone, your tablet, your browser, whatever you like. If you can use the QR code, just make a photo or go on www.menti.com, and then you need to use the code 21841 and you are directly in our live interactive session. From a brief agenda kind of view, we will now cover several topics all about temperature calibration. And in the very end, we will have a huge question and answer session to answer everything there is which you might be interested in. In the meantime, we will have several questions for you, so several polls where we need a little bit of your feedback for us to know on which parts of the huge topic calibration we should focus most. And now, back to you, Dietmar.
Thank you.
For the presentation.
All right. So first, we should ask the question when it's necessary to do a calibration for a temperature sensor. And I have prepared two typical applications where you really need a calibration. Because first one, milk. Drinking milk, cream, and things like this. There is a temperature measurement in the heat exchanger because you heat up your product very fast for a short period of time to kill all of the bacteria. And here it's necessary to have a very accurate temperature measurement because of two reasons. First one, you have to reach a certain temperature to do the pasteurization, sterilization. For our milk, it's around 123 degrees or more. So you need to be higher than this, definitely, but you couldn't go too high because you would taste it. There is a typical taste of milk which was too hot. And so you need a very accurate temperature measurement, and so to keep it accurate, you need to calibrate it. This is one example, one application of the food and beverage industry. I've prepared another one for medicine, for life science industry. For example, a medical autoclave. It's the same story, more or less. You need to reach a certain temperature, really here to kill all germs, to kill all bacteria and viruses. And again, it's necessary not to go too high because maybe you damage your product if you have some medicine in it or whatever. Again, you need an accurate temperature measurement, and the only way to save this for the future is to do a calibration. And a calibration usually works like this. For temperature, you need a reference, means a thermometer or something which is more accurate than your process thermometer, and which is tracked in a way. We will come to this. And for me, I can see this, there's a blue tag on it, so that means that it is something special. And you need for sure your units under test, the thermometers you want to calibrate. And in this case, you need a calibrator, so you need a heat source. You need something which is heating up both, and then you compare the units on the test with your reference thermometer. That is the basic principle of temperature calibration, which is usually performed. And we can visualize it here, the traceability chain. We have our measuring device, we have our test equipment. The test equipment itself is calibrated in an accredited calibration lab. For example, we have one of a German accredited lab here in our facility, and this national lab is connected to an international standard. And for temperature, there are some fixed points. The most common fixed points is a triple point of water. There are other things like argon or copper, gold, and so on. So that means there is a chain. There's really a chain from your measuring device, which is measuring your product, to the national institutes and to an international standard. So a calibration, a standard classical or traditional calibration works like this, that you go into your plant and you dismount your temperature sensor. Usually you only take out the measuring insert, so the thermowell stays in your process. That means you disconnect the wires, you carry the measuring insert to your calibration bath, and to do the calibration of the complete chain, you have to reconnect the wires to the measuring insert, and then you go to several temperatures, for example 3 points, and check if for example, if you go to 75 degrees Celsius, if they are really shown in your process control system. In this case, 100 degrees, you see the indication of the PLC is nearly 100, so it seems to be everything fine. And you can imagine, you have your reference thermometer too. That is, some work. You have to dismount it, disconnect it, put it to the bath, connect it again, and the other way around. It takes a while. And my first question for you is, how often do you calibrate? How often in a year? So there are typical intervals. And especially, it's very interesting for us, what are your limits? When you declare a thermometer not good for your process, when you adjust it or take it away. This would be very interesting for us. And Ben, so this is the first Mentimeter?
Yes, it is. And you already see that we have some results for those who are not connected yet. In the chat box of GoToWebinar, I posted a link directly going to www.menti.com. If you don't have your cell phone with you, just go on that link and you will straight directly come to this poll to be able to answer our question on how often do you calibrate, or like we put it, how long are your calibration intervals? Do you not calibrate at all, 18 months or longer, 12 months, so a year, or 6 months or even shorter? And we already have some feedback on that, which is great.
Absolutely.
And we see that, 41%, even more increasing number, is going for the 6 months or shorter.
Wow.
And the next question would directly be, what your limits are. So when will there be a thermometer out of spec? So what is your SOP, standard operating procedure, for that? Is it about 0.5? Is it about 1 Kelvin? Or is it 1.5 or more? What is allowed according to your standards? And we already see here that,
Wow.
all right, 64% go for the 0.5. Okay, so at least we are at 1 Kelvin at most so far. Please feel free to add that. It is always online on your cell phone or however you are connected to Mentimeter. And I would suggest that Dietmar goes on with a little bit more facts about how you can maybe save a little time and money when it comes to calibration.
First, your results are really astonishing for me because traditionally, most of the companies do a calibration once a year. So that the majority of the answer says 6 months or shorter means you're really keen to these technology. Very good, very interesting for us. And the 0.5, is also very rough. Right? So I have many customers who have a limit of 0.75. So, okay, that means there is some needs. If you do a calibration so often and if your limits are so close, there is some needs to make it more efficient. And the first solution I like to show you is a quick neck, we call it. And we put this on the market, I think 7 years ago or something. Because our customers ask us, the calibration, we don't really like it, what we need to do it, can we make it faster? And the first solution I like to show is a quick neck, and you can see it here in this animation. That means you can leave your cables connected and put the complete thermometer, including the head, into your calibration bath. So no need to dismount the insert, no need to disconnect and reconnect the cables. And to show it in real life, I'm close, okay. So this works like this. We have a special connection between the thermometer connection head and the thermowell, and this is this bayonet, and so you just draw it out and you have your thermometer head. Imagine the cables connected. And here we still have the spring-loaded thermometer insert, and you just place it in the calibration bath. And you see here there is a bayonet connection with some O-rings, so it's really proof and easy to install and deinstall, but proof and safe against vibration. So it's a patented technology which makes the calibration already a lot faster. The rest is the same, so we save a lot of time for these mandatory calibrations. So we are very successful with this technology, and but still our customers ask us, okay, is there something else? And I'm working in temperature measurement for more than 30 years, and in a company like Endress+Hauser, temperature is only a small part. And so, is there something new? And I'd like to tell you the story of one of the famous German physics, Max Planck. When he started to study physics, his professor said, don't do this. It was 1900 or something, or 1890 something. And his professor said, don't do it, because in physics everything is already found and invented. There's nothing to do for you, you're a smart guy, do something else. He didn't listen, he studied physics, and in 1918 he got the Nobel Prize for the quantum theory and for infrared rays and whatever, famous physics. So instead of there is nothing to do for you, everything is invented, he changed the physics, quantum theories and so on. And if you join temperature measurement, everybody will tell you, what? It's so boring, there's nothing new. So we will see. Because there is something new. It's on the market for more than 2 years now, and it's iTherm Trust Sense. And the Mentimeter question now is, Ben, have you already heard about it? So we asked this question in the last webinar, and so that is the reason we do the webinar today. Okay, yes, no, not yet. Okay, we have 6 answers.
So yeah, once more, please be interactive. We don't want to do a video broadcast, but we want to see that you are still there, not already.
Yeah, it's moving.
Not already on your way home.
Yeah, not yet.
So iTherm Trust Sense, the first self-calibrating thermometer on the world's market. So, well, at least almost half of you already heard about it.
Okay, for those, we will make an update, and for the rest, prepare for something new. All right, so what are we going to do? We already seen the calibration comparison chain, the traceability, and the Trust Sense is connecting this world in a way. So what we have done is that we have put the reference and the process sensor together at one point. We used the principle which was discovered by Pierre Curie, early 20th century, that also solid bodies can change their properties because of physics at certain temperatures. You have maybe heard about this effect, that magnetism of iron is disappearing at a certain temperature and it's coming back. Maybe you have heard that supraconductivity comes with a certain temperature and goes away if you pass. And this reference crystal, which has this Curie effect, is changing its properties at a certain temperature, and it is directly connected to the PT100 sensor in the tip of the thermometer. So, long story short, we have placed the calibration lab into the thermometer. And we can imagine this in a way that another effect, if you soon you maybe have a drink in the evening, if you have ice cubes, they are melting at 0 degrees. You can melt them, you can freeze them. You can melt them, you can freeze them. What do you expect is a temperature it will melt again? So, and this is for sure always the same as long you don't put it in your drink, then they disappear, or you put salt in it or whatever. So if your material stays the same, it will react the same. And that is the secret of this Trust Sense technology. There is a crystal with a special chemical composition, and you are not able to change it, and so you are not able to change the Curie temperature. And we can show it in a way. We have here an experiment. So this is the Trust Sense, and this is a heat source. We come to this later, and I will just start it now. I heat it up to a temperature of, we will see, 160 degrees. And I have to change to the web server. So, what we see here is the web server of our data manager. So, yeah, I need to. So the data manager is this box here. The Trust Sense is connected by a cable and a hard communication protocol. So this is a temperature sensor, and this is a data manager. And the data manager is connected to my computer. And what we will see on the web server is we have the temperature, it's 118 degrees at the moment, and we have the physical answer of the crystal, which is the red curve. And you have seen the red curve has made a step response now. At a certain temperature, it has drastically changed its properties, and the values are not really relevant. It's multiplied its values more or less by the factor of 3. And now it's a little bit constant, and now we have to wait for a while. I will carry on with my presentation. And or just we can wait a few seconds, because then we will have the next step response, which is now. And you see that the crystal, again, if passing a certain temperature, has drastically changed its properties. And that is the effect of the thrust sense. There is a crystal which is marking a certain temperature more or less with now. Yeah? And this temperature, this Curie point, cannot change. And if you go, it's hard to see, but just to believe, all this calibration lab is in this sensor. There is a PT100 together with a crystal. So this is the new technology of this thrust sense. We're going back to the presentation.
Just briefly, and what you see now is the thrust sense blinking, so the green LED is giving us the signal that the calibration is taking place right now. So just for you, if you ask yourself, how do I see that my thrust sense is calibrating, that is the green blinking light we see right now. So everything is being calculated.
And we will go back to this later on.
Yeah. And now we see a fast blinking, so calibration took place. And we go back to Dietmar and his presentation.
Yeah, okay. All right, presentation?
That's you.
Ah, that's me. Okay, good. So this is the effect we are doing with the thrust sense. So the comparison chain is still active because we have calibrated the thrust sense, the sensor, and the behavior of the crystal in our accredited lab. So it's still, the traceability chain is still active, and so it's possible to have a traceability on the certificate. So, and the big benefit here is that this calibration is automatically performed every time. You have seen this in the experiment. If the temperature is going up and down, if you pass the temperature coming from more than 121 degrees and you pass through a calibration point of 118 degrees Celsius, this calibration is performed automatically every time. That means, going back to the applications, if you go to the milk, if you shut down your plant because you have to clean it, the plant will cool down and you have a calibration. Going to the medical autoclaves, every time you do a sterilization program, after that you cool down, you have a certificate. So that means that you have a lot of documentation, you have a lot of certificates, if you like, but who's interested in having a certificate if you do it 3 times a day? However, there is a solution. If you connect one or more of these sensors to a data manager, and you add an IP connection to your computer, these certificates are automatically or can be automatically stored on your file server system. So that means that there's no effort in going there and reading out the certificates. They are on your hard disk. Every morning you will find a new certificate. And that is the general idea. This is also a kind of link between the automation instrumentation world and the quality managers. Because usually when a quality manager wants to have a certificate of the last calibration, he's going to the instrument people and say, please give it to me. And here using this chain, we have here the connection to process control system, to control loops and so on, and going via the IP connection, we go to the file server. And so the quality guy can have access to the calibration records without asking somebody. And we have some customers, for example, in the milk industry who are using this technology. The auditor of the customer comes, ringing at the door. Good morning, I'm the auditor. Please show me your last calibration. You just go to your laptop, open it, and say, okay, it was 20 minutes ago. Do you need the other 200 calibrations too? So that is a general concept of making this automatic calibration also accessible by the quality management. So the general idea of all this Ben, I forgot something?
Yeah, could you please just show the calibration certificate?
Okay.
It should be on your drive.
It should be on my drive.
People kind of get a little bit more grip on how easy it is to have those, this documentation effort in quick.
So I put it here. So you see here, this is, I hadn't touched it before. Here's the list of all these certificates. 52, 51 is the number, how often this sensor has been calibrated. And you see the last one, it was 7:53 of our time, just a few minutes ago. And if I go to the PDF, I have to be out of the way. You see calibration certificate number so-and-so, June 3, 740, and now you see we have, doesn't like it. We have the famous Windows.
Seems like Adobe is crashing.
Yeah, all right. But however, I show it later. If the ring, the waiting ring recovers, super. Yeah. But live, you see it's live.
And nevertheless, what you see the serial number of the device we just tested, you see the date and time of calibration. So when it started, it's about 7 minutes ago. You see the order code and of course everything that is relevant for the calibration, so the measured deviation and all that. A little bit further below, but not right now. So maybe once more. No. There we go.
So serial number, date, time, and now it's gone again. And you would see the calibration results if the program would work. So we have a problem with the PDF reader software. Okay.
That software is not by Endress+Hauser. It's someone completely different. But you see what we tried to show you. So you get a PDF, and if the reader works.
Here, all right, now we have it. So we have this calibration. We come to this later on. We have the reference point, which is 118.53. The measured value was 118.51. So we have a deviation of 0.02 degrees Celsius, which is in fact good, really good. So the calibration result is, fine, because in this case, the allowed deviation would be 0.8. You can surely adjust this value. So, and this certificate is produced every time you pass this temperature. That is a general idea, and now I will shut this PDF reader. So, the main idea behind this is not that you won't do a manual calibration ever again. This is not the idea. We come to this. The general idea is really shown here in a way. Yeah, you work, you do your calibration, you think everything is fine, and what if something is happening in between? And I like to demonstrate this on the flip chart in a way that if you imagine, so here, that you have the risk and the time. And you do your manual calibration at the time 0. Let We say we have 24 months here. And you do your calibration, the majority, in 6-month intervals. So here with the 24. So you do your calibration, your sensor is good according to your procedures, and you say, yeah, then my risk is 0. So you do the next calibration 6 months later. You do this because you have set a limit for the acceptable risk. And you think, if I do this calibration every 6 months, my risk is limited, and then you do the next calibration, and you come to a graph like this. So the problem here is, if you see that your sensor was not good 6 months later, yeah, since when? It was good here, it's not good at this point. Since when it was not good? You don't know. They could be broken, it could be fall down directly after the calibration or whatever, or there was a drift or whatever. Nobody knows. And the idea of the trust sense is, if you do this calibration every time your process is heating up and cooling down, the maximum length of this uncertainty, was the sensor okay or not, is the time between 2 of these heating procedures. And so instead of every 6 months, every 12 months, you do a calibration in this milk applications once a day, in a medical autoclave 3 times a day, in a biopharmaceutical plants every 1 or every 2 weeks, because this is the length of a batch. So it cannot any longer happen that you are totally surprised that your sensor was out of spec and you don't know since when. This is a general idea of this automatic calibration concept. Once I have created another way to show it, to make it understandable. Imagine you are afraid of a thief, of a burglar, I don't know the word, for a thief who's coming to your house. What can you do? The way the industry works now is they ask a policeman to come to your house once a year or every 6 months, and the policeman looks everywhere in the closet, under the bed, if there is a thief. So we are sure that the thief is not there in the moment when the policeman is here. Or imagine you have a watchdog. He's sitting in front of your house, and he's barking if something unusual is happening. And then you can react. And that's what the trust sense is. It's a kind of a watchdog. For sure, the dog won't bark if Santa Claus is coming to your chimney, but for all of the usual thieves, it's very probable that he will bark and you can react. So what gives you more safety? And this is more or less a symbol for what is the trust sense is doing. For sure, you can do both, and that's what the majority of our customers is doing. They are using the trust sense, and they are doing the manual calibration. So the question is, what is a return of invest? So maybe I have to speed up a little. You will interrupt me, Ben, if there's something happening. So
yeah, actually there is. So we already have several questions in the questions box and in Mentimeter, but we will come to them in the end of the presentation, because actually we prepared something, because those are 2 of the most frequently asked questions there are. But maybe if we think about the risk analysis and the return on invest, so what's in it from a money point of view, could you maybe estimate, because we had some numbers coming from experience and coming from our customers here, so mainly from some European customers, what it would cost them in euros. We had in euros. You can choose in Australian dollars. What it would cost you if you find out 6 months after the last calibration that one critical measurement point was wrong. So think about investigation costs. So topics like how many batches were influenced and all that kind of stuff. And of course, maybe what else is there that might generate costs for you. Yeah, therefore, those question is now in Mentimeter. For those who are not in there anymore, I hope we didn't lose you in the last couple of minutes. If yes, please use your smartphone again and come in to that point of view. So what would it cost you? Please tell us what you estimate would be the cost for you in Australian dollars. And in the meantime, we can cover some questions, because one question through the chat box was if the certificate, the calibration certificate, is stored in the data manager. And the answer is a yes and. So you have 350 calibration certificates being stored inside the TrustSense. So even if you don't use it with a data manager, you can store up to 350 calibration certificates in the device. To read out, you need to connect via hard. So via some jack connections, or you could of course use all the tools that Endress+Hauser offers, field care, device care, and so on, to read out that. And if you use a data manager, they are simultaneously stored inside the data manager, where they are also tamper-proof data storage, and we have another software which is then interacting with the data managers, which is FDM, the field data manager, and that is also tamper-proof data storage, where you get like the complete historics of your measurements, as well as all the calibration certificates directly to your hard drive. If you have any specialized questions about that, I'm really sure that the colleagues in sales will support you, and you will be more than welcome with all your questions. And in case something can't be answered, then it's always the complete structure of Endress+Hauser is supporting you. So we back here at the back end, and yeah, the colleagues from SE Australia out front. But Dietmar, we see that. Yeah,
it's not. What is there's a value in behind with?
Yeah, this would mean right now we have an average of 57,000 Australian dollars. What is actually almost exactly what we
show it.
So it's not scripted. It's
not scripted. It's really true. So switch. No, not here. Or have I put something wrong? Yeah, here. So because we have calculated 55,000 Australian dollars, which is really one-to-one transfer from euro to your currency. So that's true, because if you see that your sensor was not correct, there's 8 weeks of engineers' investigation. What is to do? What is the effect? Who's to inform? Where's the product? And so on. So perfectly. And if you carry on with this calculation, what we have received from our customers is that around 0.5 of measuring instruments have a problem which is found during the calibration. So 0.5% a year. So, and then if you calculate the probabilities and so on, and you have to add the cost of a recall, which is not included here. And for example, if you have to do a recall, what is the market talking about you? So we found out that you surely have to invest some money to have this new technology, but in total there is a return of invest time or amortization time of approximately 1.5 years. Because it's not possible any longer that you have a problem because of a bad thermometer. That is the general idea behind this technology, and we have a number of customers who are really working with this. I don't know how we are in time.
Quite okay.
Quite okay. So I have done similar presentations, not this super fantastic videos, just going to the customers around, I don't know, 200 times. So it would be quite astonishing if there are some questions which I haven't heard before. So, yeah, you have one, Ben?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to show some of our questions we have in that screen here. So that will give us an idea of what we will cover now with 3 questions in the FAQ. So we are already in there. We have one customer who is not calibrating at who is not reaching the 120 degrees. So what about another calibration point or 90 degrees?
Yeah.
We will answer that as last.
Yeah.
And the next question is, what about if you require temperature calibration at more than 1 temperature? So how do you check if the system span and offsets are within limits?
Again,
and that's actually exactly what we'll do right
that's
now.
exactly what is coming. All right, good. So, because the next typical question is, especially on the pharmaceutical markets, what is the GMP or the FDA or whoever thinking about this? And this is quite clear. So, first, we are not able to have an FDA approval for a thermometer. The FDA cares about medicine, not about instrumentation. So it's not possible for us to go there and say, oh, we have a brand new thermometer. What do you think about it? I asked Mr. Endress to buy us a small pharmaceutical company so we can do this, but he refused, unfortunately. So, but it's quite clear, because there are certain rules. And I have the sources here. So the process validation general principles and so on from 2011 says use continuous process validation if possible. The GMP good practice guide about calibration management, and here you see the chapters. You can look to it if you are familiar with this rule, says self-calibrations and online alarms, stated in a document from 2010. It describes that these data, determined by these self-calibrations and online alarms, can be used to make the calibration intervals longer. And also 1-point verifications are mentioned. So what we have done is we have not continuous process validation, we have continuous process calibration, and we have 1-point calibration. So we already exceed the needs of the GMP and FDA rules, which are written down in 2011 and 10, where for sure nobody believes in a self-calibrating thermometer. Now it's available. So we already cover the rules of the GMP, and as your question says, your SOP requires a 3-point calibration. We can do an academic discussion about it, and we will start with it now. So you can do it. You should do it. But what you can do is use this everyday calibration results to make your intervals longer. And that's what the return of invest calculation did. If you exceed your calibrations interval from 6 months, which is your majority, to 12, 18, or 24, for sure you save a lot of money. And the automatic calibration is closing the intervals in between. That is a general idea in behind. And if we go to the classical on-site calibration, which is done in the way we presented on the way. The question I have to you is how accurate you think this is. If you take a dry block calibrator, which is the majority of the applications, if you have your reference, if your device is under test, how accurate you think you can be. And this would be very interesting for me to see your answers to this. So we have a scale from 0.1 to 1 degree or worse.
So, final sprint. Please give us one last feedback on that and let us know what you think, how accurate you might be. And I think that might be one of our aha moments when we come to the next slide showing what the accuracies of those on-site calibrations regularly are. So we already see that there are still people with us, which is great. and we have an average of 0.54, would mean this 5.4 here on the display. Dietmar, what do you say to that
All right,
kind of
so yeah, fantastic audience today, really. So let's have a look. I was working in the calibration service company for a while, and this was my competitor. This is a company in Germany which is specialized on doing on-site calibrations for customers. Important to know, they don't produce measuring instruments, they are just a service company to do the calibration, and they are certified by the German state to do this. And you only get a certification, an accreditation, if you do a state-of-the-art measurement. So now we have a little bit of German lesson. So accreditation, this means on-site calibration, you can imagine, and this means resistance, and you see thermometer. So for the range we are talking about between 500 and 400 degrees, they are able to do a calibration with the smallest possible measuring uncertainty, that's the German word here, of 0.75 Kelvin. So that means if you're using a dry block calibrator for the temperature range, which is relevant for food and beverage and life science industry, a specialized company can do an uncertainty of 0.75. Can you imagine that you do it better? I don't know. So you should also work with this if you're using a dry block calibrator. And that means if you're doing your 3-point calibration, all of these points have an uncertainty of this value. And let's see what the trust sense can do. The trust sense is also certified by the German institute that the accuracy or the uncertainty of the calibration at 118 degrees, this 1-point calibration, is 0.35. So that means because the reference and the sensor are identically on the same point, there are no influence of heat transfer and whatever. That means we are twice as good at this 1 point than if you do a standard traditional calibration in a dry block calibrator. And if we then look to the real physical behavior of the sensor, every temperature sensor, PT100, is relating to this formula, which is Callender-Van Dusen. And I think we have to shorten it in a way. That means if a sensor is drifting or has a problem, as long as he still works, so it's not broken, not short circuit, it is not possible that only 1 point is affected. If we see a calibration difference at 1 point of the curve, it is not possible that it is accurate somewhere else. And you can for sure invert this statement. And the main influence in your applications, food and beverage and life science, are thermal shocks. If you place your sensor into a hot calibration bath, or mechanical shocks if it falls down after your calibration. The other influences which are changing the curve are only relevant at higher temperatures, or if you have a chemical contamination of the platinum sensor itself. And how can you go to the platinum inside? There are 2 layers of stainless steel. So whatever you do, you won't be able to touch the sensor. And so what the automatic calibration usually does is if the new sensor, the green curve, has changed by mechanical shock or thermal shock, the complete curve is at a different position. And if we see a difference at 118 degrees, the sensor cannot be accurate somewhere else, and you will get an alarm and it will stop your plant. So you won't have other batches affected. That is the general idea of this concept, And so that makes it possible to prolong your calibration intervals without having additional risk. That is the general idea of this concept. There is a lot of mathematics behind it. We will provide some papers about it that you can read it. And the question is, what if your process does not reach 118 degrees, or what if you only have 90 or something else? You can imagine that we are really developing a sensor which is doing this calibration at lower points, because the majority of applications in the food and beverage industry is a pasteurization, which is working at 80 degrees. And we are working on this. We are preparing prototypes. We will do testing with it, and we will inform you, you can believe us, as soon we are ready with this product. It gets more difficult, it becomes more difficult to go at lower temperatures because you need some energy to make this transfer of this crystal. And as lower energy is there, it's harder to identify. And there must be some substances who are having these effects at different temperatures. It's not just we do some torque on a screw and it's changed. We need a new material, which is really, really, so we are also working together with the Max Planck Institute to work on this. So we will have in the future, hopefully, I believe it, I know it, at different temperatures, but there's also some options what you can do if you don't reach the 118 degrees. For example, can you show this picture? So what you see here, the device under the thermometer. So you see this is a thermometer. This is a hair straightener. You can do the calibration with your tools from home. And you might find it funny, but we have a customer who's doing this. It's a brewery who said, oh, we like this concept. Instead of carrying the heavy dry block calibrator, we go with a hair straightener to the plant. And also, our colleagues in Australia themselves, they have invented a mobile battery-powered calibration device for the Trust Sense, which is working in a similar principle. You put your sensor in it, you heat it up, you let it cool down, you have your calibration, that's it. And if you like, you can go on your plant with this battery-powered hair straightener and a box of ice cubes, and then you can have your second point in the calibration. If you have already put your sensor out of your application, why not? So it's also possible, and we really have customers who are doing this. So we have sold a number of these hair straightener devices with a input for the sensor. You need a 6 or 3 millimeter block there, and then you can do the calibration, which is easier to do than carry the heavy block calibrator. So, yeah, Ben.
Perfect. Thanks, Dietmar, first of all. Thank you out there for your questions. If you have any more, please feel free to ask them now, because we will be online for another 2 to 3 minutes. We are already 8 minutes over time. But we are already answering questions. So that's already the questions and answers session, and actually those were your questions out there, so it's important we also take our time to go into a little more detail. If you need any further details, especially about the calibration procedure engineering Australia came up with, just feel free to ask your local sales people at any time. And one last question now coming from a different tool, so from GoToWebinar. You should be able to see a poll on your screen now, which is important for us if you would be interested in a trial of iTherm TrustSense. So we, from a production point of view, and the colleagues from Australia from a sales point of view, agreed on coming up with something specially designed for you. So please vote now on that poll. If you are not able to vote, maybe it's got to do with a full screen mode. So if you put the voting chart on a window. You should be able to vote. And we will leave that poll open for a couple of seconds so that we know whom of you we might contact now in the aftermath of this session to talk a bit more about TrustSense and how a trial, how a test could look like. Apart from that, it's been great talking to you again. Thanks for giving us 10 additional minutes for talking. So most of you are still here, and that is really, really awesome. And yeah, I hope you also are still online. If the poll doesn't work, what has recently been an issue with GoToWebinar quite frequently, please post something in the questions box so that we know that you might be interested. And apart from that, I just have a look if there are any more questions incoming. And okay, we will close the poll now. And we see that about 80% are interested in it, what is great. And we will definitely reach out to you with some more information. And now the last words are yours, Dietmar, because it doesn't seem... one important question, follow-up of all this. So you will get tomorrow, 24 hours after this session ends, you will get the recording of the session, you will get the PowerPoint of the session, and you will get several white papers. So you will see the white paper we just saw about this Belgian brewery in the US, using our calibration, but not as an automatic calibration, but semi-automatic. You will get the white paper that our dear colleague Dietmar Secker wrote, where you have much more information on 1-point versus 3-point calibration, about what those influences of the different coefficients of this Calendar Van Dusen equations come up with. So really good literature done by us, provided to you. So we'll get all that tomorrow. Also about the solution of mixing the iTherm TrustSense together with a Memograph data manager to have a calibration monitoring package, kind of. And yeah, that's good. I already see. Great to learn. Thanks for your feedback. If you have feedback, tell us, tell the colleagues of SE Australia. And now I'm really done with talking. You are the last one to talk, Dietmar.
Okay, so great fun again. Hope to see you again. If you have further questions, ask your local sales contacts and they will set up a next meeting for us. As mentioned several times, my record for presentation of TrustSense is 5 hours. So it's always hard for me to hurry up like this. So it was a kind of teaser, and if you have several questions, for sure, the Australian colleagues are well trained about this technology and they can answer most of the questions, sometimes with our help. So see you soon, hopefully. Have a nice evening. And we have a day of work still in front of us. See you soon. Bye-bye from Germany.
Take care. Stay safe.